Welcome to Bunny Trails, a whimsical adventure of idioms and other turns of phrase. I'm Dan Pugh.
And I'm Shauna Harrison. Each week, we take an idiom or other turn of phrase and try to tell the story from its entry into the English language to how it's used today. Whether you've just taken a bow after a live performance or found yourself at the center of some strange twist of circumstance that suddenly has everyone watching, attention has a way of arriving without much warning. And when it does, you may discover you're standing squarely in the limelight.
This is such a good concept, being in the limelight, because I have no idea where this comes from, and I've used it so frequently and not ever considered where this comes from. So this is exciting.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. It's a fun one to me, at least. So Cambridge Dictionary tells us, quote, someone who is in the limelight gets a lot of public attention and interest, end quote.
Okay.
So, fairly straightforward idea.
Yeah, sure, fair. That's fair.
It often implies something a little different than merely getting a lot of public attention, especially today. It also carries the weight of what typically goes along with that attention, being constantly watched, adored, and even scrutinized.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think of like being in the limelight isn't just like you dropped your books and everyone's turned to look at you. You know, it's more than that. It's more like for whatever reason you've commanded the attention. It'd be more like you walk into the crowded gym during the presentation and you just walk on a stage and start talking and now everybody's looking at you, but it's like, maybe you're supposed to be there, maybe you're not, but now you're in the limelight. You're on the stage, you are talking to people. Everyone's you have everyone's attention for now.
Yes, exactly. So it turns out limelight was a real thing. It is a real thing. It's a bright white light produced through a process of burning chemicals at high heat, particularly lime.
Okay, so being in the limelight, is that just how they lit stages and stuff then?
Yes, it is. The method.
Wow.
So the method for producing the limelight itself was developed in the early 1820s, but it didn't take long for it to make it to the stage. In the 2025 History.com article, Where Did the Phrase "in the limelight" come from?, writer Elizabeth Nix explains some of the history. Quote, the origins of "in the limelight," which refers to being the focus of public attention, are linked to a type of stage lighting that was popular in the 19th century. The lime in limelight has nothing to do with the green citrus fruit, but rather with a chemical compound, calcium oxide, also known as quicklime.
Okay.
In 1837, limelight was used for the first time to illuminate a stage at London's Covent Garden. During the second half of the 19th century, theaters regularly utilized this powerful form of light, which could be focused into a beam to spotlight specific actors or an area of the stage, as well as create special effects such as sunlight or moonlight. End quote.
So it wasn't just that they were using it to light the stage, but they could use it as a spotlight to give one person on the stage specifically everyone's attention. Everyone's drawn to that spot because that person is in the limelight.
Exactly. And it allowed them to use it as a beam of light, so this focused at an area,
right?
As opposed to just, a general lighting, which is what was predominantly used at that time.
Wow. Okay, this is a very literal phrase that has become very figurative, like many of them, but it never crossed my mind that limelight would have been like a chemical reaction with quicklime.
Right. So the technology was used prior to stage lighting for surveying and things like that, but those wouldn't have been well known amongst the general population. But putting limelight center stage, literally, thrust it into the knowledge of the populace. So the physical limelight didn't stick around for long. It was somewhat tedious, and because it had to be managed the entire time pretty meticulously. And it turned out to be a bit of a fire hazard. So cue the invention of other forms of light emission, aka electricity. And literal limelight was almost entirely removed from practical use for theaters by the end of the 1800s.
So this literally just was a 1800s thing, really.
Yeah.
It started being used 1830s, something, late 1830s, and then by the end of the 1800s, it was gone.
Exactly.
Too much fires. Too many fires.
In theaters, made out of wood and stuff.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, because we're nerds here, we're going to learn more about this process and what happened to Limelight during our behind the scenes video, which you can find each Friday on our Patreon. That's patreon.com/bunnytrailspod. For the next several decades, the phrase was used primarily to discuss individuals who were truly in the limelight on stage and also their figurative lives in the limelight. Nearing the end of the 1800s, the phrase made its way to politics and broader world concepts, used to describe the individual experience as well as that of groups. Here's one example from the Jewish South out of Richmond, Virginia, dated April 15th, 1898. Quote, "Perhaps, too, this incessant and intolerable agitation for and against the Jew might in this way to some extent abate. In this regard, we cannot but endorse the views of the London Jewish Chronicle when it states, 'We do not flinch from criticism, but for centuries we have been paraded on the public stage, standing in the limelight with the glasses of the audience turned full upon us. We are growing weary of these endless microscopic examinations and tired of the blaze and glare of the footlights.'" End quote. This is the theme that still exists today. We can see that the phrase is used figuratively there, and there's no explanation provided. It's expected that everybody knows the meaning there. Only a few years later, we see it in sports commentary in the March 18th, 1915 edition of the Bogalusa Enterprise out of Louisiana. Here's an excerpt from the article titled, "Let's Have the Best Ball Team in State Here." Quote, "Bogalusa is almost daily in the limelight for some good reason or other. One day a new enterprise, another day enlargement of some other. Still another day creating a new record for lumber production, shipments, etc." End quote. The article goes on, however, to discuss that this time it's in the limelight thanks to the younger generation of baseballers taking charge and leading the team, putting new life and focus into the team's efforts. It's not often that youth are praised in newspapers, so that was fun to see.
I also, when you said, of the Bogalusa Enterprise out of Louisiana, I was just like, what kind of weird Cajun Star Trek is this? That's what it went through my head when you said that. And then I was like, oh, Enterprise is in business. I'm following. Okay. Well, all right then.
Okay. Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, had a busy week leading up to April 20th, 1939, which was recorded in the Roanoke Rapids Herald. The title of the front page article states that the city is on the news map. It then gives a list of big events, which include 3 deaths and a baseball game with the tagline, "In the Limelight." Here is the introduction to the story. Quote, "Roanoke Rapids has been in the limelight of the entire state this week, so far as sensational news is concerned. And the never-failing eye of the Herald's cameraman bring you a bunch of exclusives in this issue." End quote. So there was a mix here of happy and sad news with an accidental death that required the draining of a canal, which resulted in the discovery of 2 unrelated deaths that were not accidental.
Oh, no. That happened with, was it Lake Mead? Whichever one is over by Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It's like as the water levels kept getting lower and lower, they kept finding more and more bodies.
Yeah. This one, they just found the one other situation. But
yeah.
So all of that was followed up with the feel-good story of a local children's clubs, actually a couple of clubs delivering gifts to baseball teams during their big game. And so, a little bit of an emotional roller coaster there in that
That's
newspaper.
So wild that there was positive news in the news. Like, did that, it's like, would that ever happen? People said positive things about anyone or anything ever?
Articles so far now.
It's wild. Huh. I wonder how they even sold newspapers back then. Right? I've been led to believe that only the world's biggest and wildest and craziest bad things sell. That is it.
Yeah.
I
just realized now, though, that the 2 happy pieces of news in these were baseball. So
heck yeah. Oh, sports. Okay. Yeah. So the happy stuff, sports can get happy stuff. That's fair.
Yeah. And little kids, being cute. So
the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Right. The Southern Jewish Weekly out of Jacksonville, Florida, dated September 11th, 1953, featured an article titled, "Reshevsky Back in World Chess Limelight." Here's a snippet. Quote, "Samuel Reshevsky is back in the limelight. Russia's refusal to permit the Soviet chess team to come to the United States and play, and Reshevsky's anxiety to meet them created an issue which revived interest in the famous Jewish chess wizard. End quote. Say that 5 times fast.
You barely said it once. Slow.
I love this excerpt. The chess scene became globally popular for quite a while, and it resurges in popularity even today, every now and then. Many people know the names of a few chess masters from history, despite sometimes viewing chess as, like less than cool activity.
I always see chess as a very cerebral activity, and it's a very strategic one because you have to think so many moves ahead. And I did enjoy that when I was a kid, but now it's like, oh man, it's one thing to play against people when you're a kid because people are not expecting you to be that good. Mm-hmm. And then as you get older, you realize there are a lot of people who are really good at this, even if they're not anywhere near like grandmaster level. And I might have been a big fish in a little pond when I was playing chess as a kid. And then as an adult playing against random people, I learned that I am a very little fish in a very, very big ocean.
Yeah,
and also,
for sure.
I'm not that good at chess.
Right. What I found, and it took me a really long time to realize why, but when I was a kid, I was really good at chess. And I think it's because I was just trying to play chess. Like I was just like, my mind, the way I looked at it then was the pieces move these ways and their pieces are in these spots. So I have these options and I would just go with that. But I realize now that the reason as an adult I was horrible at it is because you're not playing like a strategy game of what the pieces can do. You're playing a strategy game of what that other player is going to do. And I'm horrible at that.
Interesting.
Terrible at what I think people are going to
Yeah, but I bet if the other person's trying to do the same thing, they have no idea what you're going to do because you have no idea what you're going to do.
Yeah, that I would have an advantage there. Well, up next, we'll look at how the phrase is used today. But first, a quick thank you to our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by our amazing patrons on Patreon, and it is 100% free to join the Bunny Trails community. So give our weekly discussions and poll questions a try, and if you love the content and want more of it, we have some paid tiers too, if you have a few dollars to spare each month and want to support the show.
We have new things every weekday on the feeds. In addition to the conversation about what movies, shows, books, and podcasts everyone is enjoying and our weekly poll questions, we also have early access to the week's podcast, all the links, books, songs, and other content mentioned in the week's episode, and our lightly edited behind-the-scenes video featuring all the cut content, goofs, and bonus facts that didn't make it into the podcast feed.
We've also got original digital artwork every month made by Shauna and direct access to talk with us. No nefarious social media algorithms getting in the way of what we see or don't see. Plus, you can get awesome name recognition like Pat Rowe and JGP do every episode. And our top spot is currently occupied by the amazing Mary Halsig Lopez. You can join the Bunny Trails community for free at Bunny Trails Pod on Patreon. That's patreon.com/bunnytrailspod.
Let's start the modern items with Rush's 1981 song Limelight, which uses the phrase in an ironic way.
Wait, what? Rush? Use something ironically?
Wild.
Huh.
It was written by Neil Peart as he reflected on fame. The song describes being on a lighted stage as something almost unreal, exciting but also isolating and filled with pressure. There's a lyric that says he can't pretend a stranger is a long-awaited friend, showing how the glare of attention can make human connection feel kind of hollow. The song focuses on limelight, meaning more than just being seen, but of being watched and the emotional toll that it puts on a person.
I have spoken to large audiences before, and while I have no idea what it's like to be for everyone there to be there to see me, like excited, they traveled however far to come see me because that's not the situation for me. But as it would have been for rock stars or well-known speakers or things like that, but I've definitely been up there, and it is a very isolating experience, and it is so wild. The first time you get up in front of a large group, hundreds or more of people, you get up and you realize it is so wild to be so alone while you're around so many people.
Yeah.
And I know some people feel that in their day-to-day lives as well. But and I've definitely felt that way in my day-to-day life, but it is a different feeling to be looking around and all eyes are on you. And you feel like I am the only person in this situation right now because everyone else is in their own situation of looking at me and listening to me. And I am just standing here everyone is all eyes on me in the limelight. And It's like, well, this is weird. So I pretty much these days, I just don't think about it. I just kind of like gloss right over it and do my thing. And I just have to like jump in and go. Or if I think about it, then I'll psych myself up. I'll get nervous and it'll be problematic. But yeah. It's rough. And I can only imagine it's way worse for people who have a fear of public speaking, which I do not have. So like for those folks, you also have like this biological thing that's happening to them in addition to just being in your own head, which fortunately I just have to overcome my own brain being in my way. I don't have to overcome, all of my chemical and biological processes also being in my way.
Right. And there's this distancing that happens, and it's a psychological distancing that happens between an audience and a speaker or presenter, performer, and some of that is that that belief that person on stage is in some way better than or above. They have something to offer that the rest of the people in the room don't have to offer.
Well, sometimes that's true. Like most other people are not able to offer me like a killer Supertramp version or something, So, I mean, like there is a lot of times that is true. But yeah, I mean, the folks in the audience also
down
have
wisdom about like, if you choose not to
if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that definitely is going to be there, and that would be incredibly lonely, I would think, at times, if that's your main portion of your life. Afterlife in the Limelight is a song from the animated web series Inanimate Insanity, featured in the episode Kick the Bucket. It appears on Inanimate Insanity, the official soundtrack, Volume 1, which was released July 26th, 2017.
Kick the Bucket's good. We should do that episode soon.
Yeah, fun. The song follows characters who have left a competitive world. While they were competing, they experienced connection and a sense of being more alive, and then suddenly they feel empty without that experience. Limelight in the song is presented as more than just attention. It involves the expectation and pressure of the attention, as well as insecurity after it's ended. Lines about being, quote, so alive back then, end quote, followed by, quote, now it all just feels so small, end quote. Highlight that sense of loss and letdown. The idea is further cemented in the line, quote, it isn't really living at all, end quote. So that experience isn't unique to this group. It's a common feeling that follows highly emotional or stressful circumstances, the end of a live performance series, coming home after battle, following a major disaster, or the end of a big event or accomplishment. It even happens after vacation for many people. And I thought this was a really interesting use of the phrase. So.
Yeah, the afterlife in the limelight is an interesting piece because it's that's a good capture of the way that it would work for someone who's been in, a star or someone that people are looking at. But yeah, I definitely have seen that in some of those others, whether you have experienced a disaster personally or are responding to the disaster, it affects both groups the same, in a lot of ways. So it's a very interesting piece that you included there. And I hadn't really put those two together, but that, Taylor Swift coming off of her Eras tour probably has that same, trying to come back to terms with whatever her normal life looks like, that someone who just came back from a deployment, where they'd been doing the exact same thing for, months on end. And then they're coming back and trying to find their way in a life that looks different than what they were just dealing with.
Right. In the Limelight, the visual ecstasy of NYC nightlife in the 90s by Steve Eichner and Gabriel Sanchez is a photo documentary book of New York City nightlife in the 1990s.
Well, that was in the title.
Yes, it was.
It's like they captured it really well with the name.
They got it.
They nailed it.
It was practically an 1800s title. So it features never-before-seen images from Steve Eichner, who is considered a fixture in the city's club scene. The book captures glitter, costumes, music, and energy of nightclubs like the Limelight, Webster Hall, and the Tunnel. Celebrities and regular partygoers are seen in spaces where nightlife culture thrived and, for some, was the focus of their daily life. Historical and cultural context are provided through some accompanying text. It describes how nightlife was a mix of performance, visibility, and social spectacle. These individuals experienced the peak of being in the limelight with all of the attention, energy, and scrutiny, and where everyone's presence was seen and judged. For many, that was an unknown world, but the people who were a big part of the nightlife culture at that time were known in popular culture, sometimes simply because they were popular in the club scene. In Andrew Keenan Bolger's 2026 young adult novel Limelight, we follow Danny Victorio, a teen stepping into the intense world of Manhattan's art schools. The title captures both the literal stage spotlight and the emotional limelight, the pressure and scrutiny that come with being visible and judged. It's a modern personal take on the phrase, being in the limelight isn't just about fame, it's about standing out, facing expectations, and finding your place in a world that's watching. And the art world is incredibly competitive and definitely can be harsh.
Sure, that makes sense. I also could imagine that for a lot of folks who are constantly engaged in social media, it can probably feel like if you're posting your entire life there, it can probably also feel like you're constantly in the limelight because there's a constant judgment that is seems to be a byproduct of social media interactions. And whether you are just a regular person or you are some sort of a well-known person, there's those parasocial relationships then take things into weird situations to make this whole like visible and judged thing stand out even more with folks, whether it's in an art school as in this article or this novel, or if it's just on social media or whatever.
Limelight Agency SPS is a full-service artist management and distribution agency. They handle career management, gallery relations, marketing, pricing, show schedules, and global distribution for visual artists. The agency represents a number of artists, such as Stephen Holland, who's known for creating incredible portraits of sports figures, Mike Trout, for example, as well as action scenes. Their representation isn't limited to sports-related art. However, overall, the artists they represent create work that often intersects with pop culture and celebrity subjects, which includes sports, music, and cultural figures. Also in the art world, but in a completely different modality, according to their website, quote, Limelight is an internationally awarded and world record-breaking digital art design studio. We specialize in producing custom light art installations, including projection mapping and immersive experiences for unforgettable moments at any scale, end quote. If that sounds familiar, think of those light designs that are projected onto large buildings, or the 3D and immersive experiences that are found at many museums or traveling exhibits. There's a chance that the ones you've seen were created by the Limelight crew. Their website has quite a few videos and photos of their pieces, so you can take a look for yourself. A little trippy, honestly. In the limelight is a phrase that feels a little glamorous on the surface, bright, exciting, full of attention. But the more we look at it, the more complicated it becomes. Whether it's fame, pressure, performance, or simply visibility, being in the limelight isn't just about being a star. It's about being seen. And maybe that's why the phrase has lasted. Because most of us, at some point, have stepped into our own version of that light. It can be fun to be in the limelight for a few minutes, but it's also nice to go back to the safe, comfortable lighting of a more relaxed daily life. That's about all we have for today. If you have any thoughts on the show or pop culture references we should have included, reach out to us on Patreon, patreon.com/bunnytrailspod, or comment on our website at bunnytrailspod.com.
It's poll time. Recently, we asked our patrons, you went viral online? Why? We gave some basic examples like a powerful and emotional personal story that resonates with people, or you accidentally did something incredibly awkward that people loved, or a meme you created that everyone couldn't stop sharing. Maybe it was a life hack that completely changed the way you do something simple, or your pet doing something ridiculously adorable. Jan shared, quote, "It's most likely going to be a weird recipe," end quote. That's fair.
Nice.
Alan said, quote, "I'm pretty awkward. I think that's the only one that's even remotely possible for me," end quote.
Well, I'm in the same boat as Alan generally. I actually did have a meme, though, of sorts that kind of went viral on platforms like Instagram and TikTok. You can upload sounds separately to be used to add to content. And a while back, there was this clip from a TV show based on a podcast that I enjoy, in which one of the three brothers of the show says in a very deadpan voice,
quote, "I'm very uncomfortable with the energy we've created in the studio today," end quote.
So I saved the sound to add to a video of my own that I never ended up posting, but the sound bite was automatically added to the library of sounds on TikTok, and it had been used a couple of thousand times before I turned off my account. I didn't create the original sound, and I'm sure a million copies have been uploaded since, so it's not really my claim to fame, not connected to my name, but probably the closest I'll ever get.
That's very interesting. Well, my memes are only funny to a small group of people who are part of my many, many inside jokes, which means I will never go viral for that. I'd probably go viral for a life hack, but it would be something I didn't realize I was doing differently than most people. Like, people will be so surprised by how I wash the dishes or weed the garden or something, though it would be my preference to never go viral at all. As a reminder, our silly polls mean absolutely nothing and are not scientifically valid. And patrons of all levels, including our free tiers, can take part. Head over to patreon.com/bunnytrailspod to take this week's poll. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week. Until then, remember, words belong to their users.